the invocation problem, and then the thumbnail is going to have the words "I'm worried" on it with Sable. And people are probably going to be like, "Oh, it's not even out yet. The PTB's not even finished. So you're just being a doomer for no reason. Why you gotta be a negative Nancy? What's wrong with you? Why do you hate this game? Stop playing it. Your titties are amazing." And I agree with that last part. But the point is, and I'm forced to remind everyone once again, that YouTubers are supposed to make quick, punchy titles to videos that may or may not necessarily tell the entire thesis statement of the video in order to get clicks. Because at the end of the day, as much as people make content because they enjoy it, myself included, this is still our job. This is still how I pay bills. So I could either title my video "The Invocation Problem," or I can title it "Invocation Perks, while very interesting, do pose a little bit of a problem that I am worried about, that I would like us to address now before it gets to become a bigger issue, and perhaps behavior can take a look at all of this before it actually becomes a problem, and we have to deal with the backlash down the road and trying to fix something after it has already happened." Do you see how those two match up? Do you see why I went with the first title? Good. Good. So now that that out of the way, let's go ahead and address what invocation perks are. If you have missed my last two PTB videos, or you have somehow missed all discussion around the PTB, invocations are a new type of survivor perk coming with the All Things Wicked chapter on March 12th. Sable introduces a new type of perk where there is a salt circle in the basement, and you and up to all of your teammates can get around the circle and interact with it. After a certain time limit, in this case 120 seconds, or differing time limits depending on how many people are joining you in the circle, there is a gigantic debuff in being broken for the end of the game, but every generator is repaired 15%. This is actually a really interesting perk that opens up a lot of really interesting avenues. Or does it? The first issue that I have with the invocation as a concept is that I'm worried they're going to follow the trend that they follow with boon perks and not do the individual timers in accordance to what each perk does, but instead normalize them across the board. I spoke briefly in my coming back video about how behavior needs to stop and take a look at boons and start changing things like ranges, or how boons are even affected, or how boons even affect survivors based off of the boon's abilities. My point was boom illumination, where it's a chubby little 24-meter range. You run into the range, and then you look around the map for a generator, and then you head for that generator. And I said that I think that the boon should instead make it to where survivors can see the aura of generators that are within a certain meter distance of them while the boon is lit. So I'm worried that with invocations, they're going to start releasing invocations, and they're all going to be 120 seconds to complete, with the 50% if the survivor joining you doesn't have an invocation, 100% if the survivor does. I'm worried that that's going to become a normalization, because not every effect is going to be equal. Right. So if they released it, let's say they released an invocation where after the invocation is done, you are exposed for the rest of the match, but every survivor has one endurance hit or something like that. You know what I mean? Like just throwing something off the top of my head. Well, that's not going to be fun, because every survivor would only get one endurance proc in exchange for you being exposed for the rest of the match, and it took you almost 2 fucking minutes to get that effect to even pop off. You know, and I'm not saying that that's an actual thing that they're making. I'm just saying that that's an example of what would be considered a really bad invocation perk that is still following the normalization of taking 2 minutes to proc. A secondary problem that I see whenever I think of the invocation perks is that there's only so much you can do. So one of the problems with boon perks, and it's one of the reasons I think the normalization is a bad idea, is that they basically haven't been releasing a lot of boon perks, because sometimes it feels like they pretty much covered everything, right? Especially at this point, right? Exponential lets you pick yourself up off the ground. Shadow Step get rid of your scratch marks. Circle of Healing increases healing times. Illumination is aura reading, and then Dark Theory. Yeah, Dark Theory is haste. The only thing they got left is to increase gen speeds while you're in the range. And so with invocation perks, what I'm worried about is they're going to quickly run out of ideas because they need to stick to that 2-minute timer, but then they need to find both a giant debuff and a giant reward. Right? Because you can't just apply broken for the rest of the match to all of them, or maybe that's part of the normalization process. I sure as shit hope not. But maybe that's part of the normal. So then every single invocation breaks you for the rest of the match, in terms for its big payouts. But what other big payouts are there? We all know, thanks to the MFT fiasco, that you can't give every survivor haste for the rest of the match. But that would be the only good payoff to being broken for the rest of the match. We know that the endurance idea that I just pitched might be a little bit hard to implement, because how do you implement it? Give every survivor endurance for only one hit? Well, then you've wasted 2 minutes and fucking broken yourself for the rest of the match just for all 4 survivors to get 1 extra hit in the entire game. Then again, that might be kind of broken with pair with other perks, but we're talking about isolated incidents here. With these 2 problems in mind, my personal thought process is that 1, do not normalize invocation perks. Adjust time to cast and debuffs to go along with the buffs. Number 2, it's time to start getting a little bit funky and a little bit creative, right? Because I don't want like 3 different invocations to have something to do with repairing generators, and then like 1 invocation that has to do with haste or something like that. It's time to start getting really fucking creative and start maybe doing invocations and even boons to deal with items, right? Let's say you have an invocation that doubles the charge of every item in the trial. That would be really fucking cool. That actually might be worth, going down and do. Like, imagine if you could bring some toolboxes in with some swing arms, and fucking like Commodious with swing arms, and then double all of their charges. That would be really good. I'm sure flashlight users would want to double the charges of their flashlights or something. You could do stuff that gives aura reading to the killer. So like for the rest of the match, every 25 seconds or every 30 seconds or something like that, survivors see the aura of the killer for blank, blank, blank amount of time. That's something that I think, but again, I want them to be creative, right? I don't want them to do what they did with boons and just kind of pick a subject and be like, that's what we do, right? So like, for example, boon shadow step is kind of cool. It hides your scratch marks and it hides your aura. But I would like to see a boon that scrambles your scratch marks. So when the survivor's running, instead of it just creating scratch marks like in the direction they're going, it like increases the radius and mirrors it, right? So if they're going left, scratch marks also get created to the right. Would that be useful? I don't know, but it'd be fucking cool. It would be inventive. You know what I mean? It just kind of feels like behavior comes up with these really interesting concepts, because at the base level, the idea of having another interactable object outside of generators is fantastic. I love the concept. I want to see fucking so many more, bro. I want to see you guys just start introducing just the most random off the wall perks. Like, for this new perk type, you got to go off to the top of the map and hurl yourself off a cliff or some shit, right? I want to see more stuff that creates more stuff for the survivors to do. But I think that when it comes to these invocations, when it comes to all of these, or when it comes to this concept, there's a lot of problems with the current one, and not just the strength of it, right? Because I've already talked about that in my PTB video. I'm talking about the perceived issues that can come in the future with future invocations. And again, I might be wrong, right? I understand that. We haven't even gotten the current invocation we have. I have no idea if the next invocations are going to follow the problems and the issues that I'm talking about. However, I think it's important to note that behavior's history with these type of perks is very, very consistent. Again, we just need to look at boons. And I don't want them to do with invocations what they did with boons, because as it stands, a lot of boons are very lackluster. And so they don't take enough risks and chances with boons, because they're trying to keep this normalization throughout them, instead of trying to come up with unique and fun and interesting ways for the boons to work. And I just don't want to see that happen with invocations. I want invocations to have different times, different debuffs, different varieties, or different extremities, right? I want to see an invocation come out that has a very small downside with a very large payoff. Is it going to be balanced? No, but at least it will show that behavior is trying to step out of, for lack of a better word, a circle that they have put themselves in. I don't want to see them restrain themselves. I want to see them open up their creativity. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Be sure to let me know what you guys think down below. As always, I don't do these videos just to spout my opinion at you. I do it so that I can hear your thoughts as well. And once again, a big thank you to my channel members, Nuclear Bomb, Cat Lover, and Spirit Upgrades for their additional support. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.